Hi, welcome back to Global Shelly. Today is the first part in a three-part series on aging gracefully. Throughout this series, we're going to be exploring the fundamental aspects of aging, and that is bone health, skin health, and structural aging. That's your tissue and fat distribution. And today's focus really is on bone health and the literal framework that supports everything. As we age, remember that our bones undergo significant changes that affect not just our mobility and our posture, but also our facial appearance. So understanding these changes is the first step toward implementing effective strategies to maintain bone strength and structural integrity throughout your life. And this is really aimed at women who are getting older. Anyone who is 30, 35 and above really needs to be thinking about bone health into perimenopause, menopause, and even beyond into those postmenopausal years. So I want to take some time today to talk about understanding bone loss, both your face and your body. The science of age-related bone changes really start in the mid-40s. However, the things that we do in our 30s leading up to our 40s really impact those bone changes that happen in your mid to late 40s. Many individuals really show a noticed decreasing in facial elasticity, and this impacts the jawline definition and your overall facial structure. And this really occurs due to several different factors. We're going to talk about some of those right now. So first we have a bone density reduction. Natural bone resorption accelerates as we age, particularly after menopause when estrogen levels drop significantly. So if you do not do something like HRT, hormone replacement therapy, right, you are more at risk for some of these bone changes. The other thing that happens is the supportive protein matrix, that's your collagen matrix within the bones, actually starts to weaken, and this can reduce the structural integrity of your bones as well. So it's not just the resorption, it's also that protein matrix degradation that happens as well. And then the other thing is gravity plays a role in this, because when combined with bone loss, these factors actually lead to sagging face contour and less defined jawline, right? And we want to keep that jawline nice and sharp well into our elder years. So the other thing that happens is your fat redistribution. Your fat actually changes distribution, and this can alter your facial appearance, especially if you have bone loss combined with facial fat redistribution can actually change the way your face looks. Remember that women actually have the most struggles related to bone health as they age. Of the 10 million Americans with osteoporosis right now, about 80% of those are women, a quarter of them being 65 or older. The decline of estrogen as we age, as women age, has a lot to do with why bone density lowers, and men don't face those kinds of problems as they age. This is a silent disease because it rarely causes symptoms. Fractures are one of the earliest indicators that you are having osteoporosis. And this makes preventative measures essential, okay, not optional. So even though this video is targeted at, keeping bone health so it doesn't change your facial structures, right? We have to understand that it's all over our bodies. So when we're targeting the face, we're not just targeting the face, right? We're targeting the entire body's bone density, right? So we want to make sure that all of our bones in our body have the appropriate level of density as we age. So what are some things that we could do as consumers and as women to help mitigate or combat bone loss as we are aging? Well, I'm going to tell you the first thing. The first thing is exercise. There are so many studies done on bone density and bone loss, and reversal of bone loss points to exercise being a way to mitigate some of that bone loss. So first and foremost, resistance training. Resistance training has emerged as one of the most effective exercise-related intervention tools for improving your bone density. Now, research shows that it can produce pretty positive effects on bone mineral density at both the hip and the spine. Okay, so we're talking a 0.64% increase in the spine or in the hip, and then 0.62% in the spine. So that's a pretty remarkable change in bone density. The most effective resistance training really is basically anything that targets both the upper and lower body muscles, anything that has more than one set. So you need 2 to 3 sets per exercise. You should be doing that 8 to 12 repetition. Anyone who's set up a resistance training routine kind of knows how that goes. So with resistance training, you're going to target a specific muscle group, right? It may be your biceps, for instance, right? And you're going to be doing 2 to 3 sets of bicep curls at 8 to 12 repetitions each at about 70 to 90% of your maximum capacity, right? And that level of resistance training, doing that for 3 times a week for at least 12 weeks will start to increase bone density. My gosh, that's amazing. And I am guilty of this because I don't do enough resistance training. I love to work out. I think I tell you guys I work out pretty much every morning, but my exercises of choice tend to be more cardio related. And I really need to focus more on resistance training because when it comes to bone health, resistance training is really amazing for increasing bone density. And there are some key exercises that really help with bone density as well. Really what you're looking for in exercises too is anything that's weight bearing. So that's why things like squats, seated jacks, reverse lunges, you're using body weight, but it's body weight bearing. The other thing is walking, push-ups, you're lifting off the floor, right? Deadlifts, you're kind of bending down. You are using weight resistance, and that does help. Anything weight bearing is really good. So walking, jogging, cycling, especially jogging because it kind of hits the pavement. However, your body does get used to the jogging. There has been evidence to show that hard landing and something about the hard landing and the shock kind of goes up through your bones, and it really can help your bones get stronger. There's been a ton of evidence on this. Recent studies have shown this, and many doctors that support women who are going through perimenopause and into menopause say that it's vital that women get some shock. Hard hits is what they're called, hard hits on the floor. So there's a couple of different ways that you can cause these hard hits. I do not recommend box jumping. I hated box jumping. I could never do it. It scared the crap out of me. I did try it a couple of times. I almost killed myself. Please do not go out and box jump if you've never box jumped. Just don't do it. Box jumping is where you sit, where you stand, you have a leveled platform, right, up, and you jump up to it, and then you jump down, right? The jumping down is fine. That's a good hard landing. If you want to, climb on a box and jump down, do a little squat and jump down and land. If you are healthy enough and your bones are strong enough to handle it right now, you are welcome to do that. You could also do a kind of like a mini jump squat that also has that hard landing as well. You could do a jump squat with a weight. I like to do kettlebell swings. So I find it to be less shocking to the body, but it gives me enough lift with the kettlebell to get some good height where I can get a good jump. So I just kind of jump 5 forward and I jump 5 back. So I swing the kettlebell forward, right? And I jump. And then I swing it back and I jump. So that's how I, do that. I do the swing. And then when I'm going forward, right, in the middle of that swing, that's where I jump. And when I'm going back like that, on the way back, that's when I jump. I find these to be really helpful. And I don't know, my bones feel stronger when I do it. So maybe I'm just psyching myself out, but that's my more of my jump exercise. And I don't do them as often as I should be doing them 2 to 3 times a week. Please do if you're gonna do the jumps, do them 3 times a week, but be very careful, start small. You do not need to be jumping like crazy day one. You don't want to hurt yourself, right? The whole point is to keep strong, healthy bones and not to get fractures or anything like that. So be very careful, but I definitely think you should start especially if you're in the perimenopause years, doing some jumping, like whether it's jump squats or whether it's kettlebell swing jumps. You should have some of that because that shock helps strengthen your bones. It actually helps strengthen the mineral density in your bones. So don't ask me how it happens, but all the studies show that that is the truth. So a lot of people are incorporating this into their routines throughout their age. And even men are doing it because men do have bone density loss. It's just not as marked as females, mainly because that drop in estrogen really takes a toll on our bone health. So what else can you do? So exercises is one. You can also use supplements. So remember that a lot of the food that we eat today is either ultra processed, highly processed, processed in some form, or even if you're eating organic, whole, natural foods, the mineral density in our foods is just not what it was 100 years ago. It's not what it was even 50 years ago. And research has shown, honestly, that most adults are lacking some of the key nutrients they need. Even eating a, pretty standard, somewhat healthy diet, people are still lacking in minerals and vitamins. So that definitely shows that our food is probably not as nutrient dense as it used to be. We should be supplementing a little bit, especially as we get older. I never used to be a huge fan of supplements, meaning I wanted to get most of my stuff from the food that I ate. However, all the studies I've seen lately have shown that our food is just very lacking in the level of minerals and vitamins that it once had. So while there are vitamins and minerals in our food, it's just not as much. As we age, a lot of our minerals and vitamins deplete. Our body doesn't work as well to make them, especially with certain minerals, right? We don't make it as easily as we did when we were young, or we just stop making it, period. And so there are some really important vitamins and minerals that you should be taking in order to decrease that bone loss. A lot of people ask, should you be taking calcium? I take a calcium supplement probably 1 to 2 times a week, just to make sure that I have the intake of calcium, because I don't eat a lot of dairy. I don't think you necessarily need calcium. There is calcium from a lot of your foods. Like I said, I do take a calcium supplement, like I said, a few times a week. I don't like to take it daily because my calcium is pretty good. It's pretty high. What I want to focus on are the things that help me absorb that calcium. And so one of the things that I take is a vitamin D. Okay, so vitamin D is essential for calcium absorption, and it works to facilitate that bone building part. So without sufficient vitamin D, your calcium isn't really being put into your bones. Okay, so it's really important, especially as you age, to take that vitamin D. And most adults are really lacking in vitamin D. Surprisingly, we spend so much less time in the sun, right? We absorb vitamin D from the sun. You can also go outside, maybe get some sun on your legs for about 10 minutes a day, not in the hottest part of the day. So if you do use the outdoors to try to synthesize your own vitamin C, just make sure it's in the earlier part of the day and not, or in the later evening and not in the midday, right? Where those UV rays are more intense. But I will say that your body will synthesize vitamin D And vitamin D from the sun is a great source of vitamin D. However, it may not give you all of the vitamin D that you need because our body is not as good at creating vitamin D as it was when we were in our 20s. I usually take a supplement. I take a vitamin D and a K2 supplement. And K2 is really important if you're taking vitamin D. K2 activates osteocalcin, which combines with other things to promote bone mineralization. And what it does is it takes the bone, that calcium, and it makes sure the calcium and the vitamin D go into the bones and not into other areas like your heart, where you can get calcification and blockages and other things. So it's really important to take that K2. And there is evidence it helps reduce fractures and can help increase spine bone density. So that is another important point in why you should be taking K2 as well. Magnesium is the other supplement that you should be taking. So magnesium actually supports mineral bone health by activating vitamin D and influencing that parathyroid hormone secretion. This is super important because research has shown that an increase in magnesium can actually help increase hip bone mineral density. That is huge because magnesium, it looks like magnesium, vitamin D, K2, and calcium all kind of work together to help with bone density. So when we think about how our bones do get less and less dense as we age, one of the other things is it's harder and harder to get those minerals into our body as we age. And so some of it might be this interplay with exercise and mineral deficiency that might exacerbate some of the things that are happening with osteoporosis, with menopause, right? And that loss of estrogen. And I'm going to throw up a couple of D3K2 supplements that I take. I've taken both of these. I like them a lot. One is a little bit more expensive, and that I get through my subscription with AG1. It does contain D3 and K2. It's a really good supplement. And the other one is pretty cheap. It's on Amazon. I think it's like 12 bucks, and it's huge, and there's a lot of them. And that's with the K2 made from natto, which is that Japanese fermented tofu, and it's so good that you have your K2 made from natto. The studies have shown that that is the best form of K2. The other thing that you want to take too is a collagen supplement. Remember, collagen actually helps that bone matrix because that is made up of collagen, and you really need it to have the structural integrity in your bones. And so I am still looking for like the holy grail collagen supplement. My favorite one still is and always will be so far. And I've tried so many. I am thinking about, well, no, because I don't trust really marine collagen. I want grass-fed bovine. That is the collagen that literally every research shows that increases that collagen, right? So far, the only one that I found that I really like is the Vital Proteins. It's not an expensive collagen. I struggle to take my collagen. So I'm going to add it to my morning green drink because I cannot get it down. I cannot get 2 shakes down. I am not a person who eats a lot of food. I struggle to get my calories in. And I think as we get older, that's pretty natural, but I can't add that collagen shake in, or even a collagen drink in. So I really need to be adding that to my green drink in the morning. Hold me to that, guys, because I'm going to start doing that. I even don't take my collagen like I should. And I know that it supports my bone matrix. I know that it helps with that overall structural integrity of my bones, and I really need to be taking it. Also, limit your processed foods and limit your salt intake. That accelerates bone loss. So salt is a no for women over 45. Don't eat it. Don't eat excessive salt. And if you're eating processed foods, you're getting an excessive salt intake, right? Because processed foods have so much salt in them. Finally, I am a huge fan of practicing facial exercises and mewing for your bone health. Mewing especially. Right? Mewing and really strengthening that jaw is what I believe has helped, you know, kind of sculpt my jawline better. And so remember, mewing involves having a proper tongue posture, placing the tongue against the roof of the mouth with the lips closed and the teeth only lightly touching. And it does stimulate upper jaw growth, it improves jaw definition, and it enhances facial symmetry. Guys, I'm gonna tell you, this is a game. I do this every day. I mew every day, and to practice it, it's super easy. You just, and I've done this in videos before, you just gently close your lips, you place your tongue on the upper palate and ensure the tip is just behind your front teeth without touching them. Okay, and then you breathe through your nose and maintain good head and neck posture. And you push your tongue up against the roof of your mouth. And then you'll just want to do this. I do this probably throughout my day. I just try to keep my tongue in that posture. I started out small, just a few minutes, and then kind of increased it. And now every time I close my mouth, I try to mew. The changes are going to be less dramatic when you're an adult, but with consistent practice, you will see definite changes in just your facial structure. I noticed that my face kind of went out more, and it really did help tighten my face, my skin against my face. I feel like you can see my bone structure better since I started mewing, but I do a lot of things simultaneously, so I never know, like, what is it that really affected it? But I can tell you this, my jawline was so bad a few years ago. I had definite sagging on my jawline, and I do believe that mewing helped fix that a little bit because it helped kind of tighten my jaw, like just make it like more firm and snatched. So remember that when it comes to things like exercise, supplementation, mewing, these require consistency and patience to expect results. Bone changes are gradual and usually happen over the years and months rather than days. So keep that in mind. Your changes are not going to be as dramatic too, especially with, you know, depending on how old you are, but it's something to keep in mind as we get older because bone problems help that facial stuff that starts to sag become more apparent, right? And some of the things that can happen is you can lose bone density on your jaw, and then you can get some sagging of tissue, and it can really make you look like you have bigger jowls than you probably really do if your bone density had stayed the same. Okay, so we want to try to increase that bone density as much as possible. So bone loss is natural, but by targeting it, we can preserve it both in the face and the body. And I encourage you to stay tuned. This is just part 1. Part 2 is skin aging, and then we're going to talk about some structural aging because there are things that we can do to help keep that structural aging at bay as well. So like, subscribe, and share if you found this helpful. Remember, I love making content for you, and I will see you next time on Glow with Shelly.